see who's here. No Fernando anymore.
No, it's in South Bend.
Oh, it's not the same.
You're right.
He'd be right there.
We need to put a picture of his face right here.
I know.
I could call him FaceTime. Make him feel comfortable.
Do it. Their spring game's over, so
That's true.
we'll wait for Joe. On time means you're late, Joe.
Well, we're on Coughlin time.
You're good. Yeah, you're good. It's just a draft press conference, so. All right.
Way to go.
Yeah.
So one of the themes for you, I guess always, but this year you just talked about, wanting to build a complete football team and not just going to focus on the defense. Just how close do you feel like your roster is to being there, to being a complete team?
I mean, you never really know. You just don't. You never really know. So, we're just trying to use every avenue we can use right now to get there, whether it's trade, free agency, draft, post-draft. But yeah, how close are we? I don't know.
There's been a lot of talk about possible trades, more trades this year than. Have you noticed that so far? There have been more calls among GMs about trading up or down?
It seems like every year people say the same thing. I don't know. It seems about the same as every other year. I just don't think there's never really a consensus in the draft. There really shouldn't be. I mean, they're just opinions. So it's such a subjective process we go through to rank the players. I don't know. I think the fact that there may not be as many quarterbacks as usual, maybe that could play into it. But it's just hard to tell. And a lot of the trade stuff. I mean, you may make a couple calls this week just to set things up, but it really doesn't get going until when the draft starts. Even when you're on the clock, sometimes a player may get a little bit farther down than you thought. Team makes a move, so it's hard to tell.
Being at 17 in the middle of the pack, do you kind of get antsy sometimes and you don't want to trade up, or there's more options being in the middle?
You try not to get antsy about it. Sometimes you got to sit and wait and be patient. Sometimes, but I feel good with where we are, with the amount of players we have in that area. We should be in pretty good shape.
With the number of day 3 picks that you have, does that give you enough capital that if you wanted to maybe try to get back into the second round, or there's somebody you saw in 3 or 4 that you could package those and maybe use them?
More than likely, probably not. Those 7th-round picks don't really carry a lot of capital. We got 2 6s. It doesn't get you real far, those picks. So it's always a possibility, but I don't know if it's realistic.
How about moving back in the first to acquire that second-round pick? Like, does that influence your decision-making process? Only like picking 17 and then 79, having that gap. Would you be
Sure.
open?
Yeah, we're always open to it. I mean, you'd have to go back pretty far to get it 2. But yeah, it's certainly something you have to look at. We're going in the draft with the first-round pick and then a big gap until we get to the 3rd. So, I mean, I spent a lot of time going through scenarios and preparation as far as what could happen going up or down. Going up this year without having a second-round pick, I don't know if that's really realistic. Yeah, I don't think we'll have to anyways. But going back, certainly, I mean, it's an option every year. Certainly be an option this year to see, how far. A lot of it comes down to who's on the board at that point. How far back do you want to go? How many players do you have left at that spot? But there's a lot of benefits of moving down. Pick up an extra pick. You may pick up an upgraded pick. And you have to kind of weigh that versus who's there and kind of remind yourself that we're not like infallible as far as talent evaluators. I mean, we get as many as we get right, we get wrong. I mean, even in the first round, I mean, probably less than half of these guys will sign a second contract with their own team. So that's not great odds. So you have to remember that we put all this work into these guys, but we're not going to be 100% right. So sometimes moving back, is helpful. At least you get a little something back for that process. But we'll kind of see. I mean, a lot of it plays out during the draft. I don't know where, in front of us, I don't know exactly who's going where. I put a lot of work in trying to figuring it out. I'm like you guys. I don't really know. I don't think anybody really knows. So we play it out, do a lot of different scenarios, and then let it ride from there.
In terms of trying to predict, does this year feel more about, you mentioned obviously the quarterback situation, no clear cut, first overall pick, that type of thing. Even the edge rushers that might go early. No one really knows what's going to happen. Does it feel more wide open to you this year, or is that just?
I mean, just it'd be nice if like 4 quarterbacks went in the top 15, which I'm all for. I don't know where those guys fall. I really don't. So, but the rest of it's about the same to me. It just really is. I mean, it doesn't feel any different than any other year.
Getting back to more of a like normal, off season with COVID restrictions being less. How has it been conducting some of these like in-house player visits? Has that been felt in this go around versus the prior years? Yeah,
it's nice to have it back. But we've also done more Zoom interviews this year than we did, say, 3 or 4 years ago. It's been very efficient. Is it exactly like a face-to-face interview? Obviously not, but we can talk to more people that way. But, we have brought players in for visits like we used to. Just having the scouts back in the building for meetings is, it's kind of important too. So the process is a little bit back to normal. But we also learned a lot of things during the pandemic of how we work, how efficient we can be, and how we can make some changes to that, and we've kind of implemented that as well.
These late round, 7th round picks and the free agent class, is it more normal now over the last 2 years with the pandemic? You didn't have as much tape on some of these guys that you would typically bring in as free agents. Are we getting back to a little bit more normalcy now where there's maybe more guys to keep an eye on?
There's certainly a lot more numbers this year than last year, and that's really due to the pandemic. Players getting an extra year of eligibility to play. So our numbers are really heavy, just the amount of players that the scouts have looked at. So our pool is much bigger. Obviously, yeah, some players, they've got like 5 years of like full, starting experience, which is, you never used to see. I've never seen so many 24-year-old prospects in the draft in my life. Usually that's a negative. It may not be so much of a negative now just because there's reasons why they stayed in school. So, but yeah, the numbers are high. There's always a lot of tape to watch on players, but yeah, there's some players that we've seen for 5 years and done like 3 years of work on them, thinking they were going to come out 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and then now. So, but it should be a pretty strong effort, I think, across the league after the draft.
Tom, on the offensive line, especially that right side, you're missing some guys, you lost some guys. Do you feel like you want to address in the draft to get some guys on the right side?
We'll just kind of see how it plays out. You just never know how it's going to go. A little bit like free agency, you can only bring in what's going to be available. Same thing with the draft. We can only draft what's available. We certainly aren't going to force anything. So we got different plans in-house, different plans, looking forward if it wasn't from in-house. So kind of see how it plays out.
Specifically with the offensive line, obviously a prospect like Rashawn, super polished, technically sound. Then you have other prospects that, have all these traits, size, movement, but maybe the technical side of their game isn't there. How do you balance that when you're assessing maybe specifically tackle prospects? Like when you have a guy that maybe super traitsy, have all these measurables that you want, but maybe the tape doesn't show the technical.
Yeah, that's why it's just so subjective how we do this. And there's a lot of opinions involved, and you're never going to have everybody with the exact same opinion on players. So, like I said, it's more art than science when you come down to it. We use a lot of data to try and cross-check our eyes, but, in the end, it's kind of an art as you put this together. So, yeah, you have to weigh that. But even with, Rashawn, it wasn't like he was a slam dunk guy. There's no slam dunk players in the draft. There hasn't been. But there's certain players that maybe fundamentally a little farther along than others. But when they get here, we have coaches here. That's what they do. And a big part of us getting better for next year is not just adding new players, it's developing what we have, and that's coaching. It's coaching in the off season. Coaches aren't just doing scheme, X's and O's all day long. It's developing the players we have. So if you do see a player that you feel like has all the traits you need to project to this level, and you feel like he has the work ethic, the mentality, the drive, the desire to be great, then you can work with that and you can develop them. So because we do have to be careful, we want to draft good college players, but those college players have to project to pro players. And sometimes there's a difference there. So, but that's why we have, coaches to get out there and work with these guys. And, you put together all the traits, see if the work ethic is there, and then, you roll the dice, see if it works.
With tackles, a lot of the top prospects have played the left side. In terms of projecting if a guy can play right tackle, is it almost interchangeable now, maybe compared to the past, whether they can play left or right?
It's funny. It's a good question because I know as scouts, it's really easy for me to say, "Oh, we'll just flip left tackle, right tackle, and then he can go. Or hey, he's a tackle, we'll just put him at guard. But as a coach, like it's some work there, and it's not just a given that a guy can flip from one side to the other. So, but yes, there's projections involved. I know for me, the way we play the game nowadays, I mean, both tackles are really left tackles to me. They both have to be really good pass protectors because there's so many good rushers in this league. All the good teams have multiple rushers. They can line up wherever they want. They can line up inside. They can line up outside, left or right. We have to be able to protect that. So, but yes, it's discussions about that. So, if a player's only played one position in college, can he make that transition to a position that he may play for us? Those are discussions. That's where it's really helpful, where the coaches get involved really heavily. And if they think a guy can make that move, most guys can. But it's certainly something we just don't gloss over and just say, oh, we'll just flip this guy from left to right and let it roll. I mean, we do a lot of discussions on that.
How much collaboration is done between you and the scouting staff in conducting the draft board entirely?
Yeah, I mean, for the scouts, it's a 12-month process. It's almost 13 months because I know our guys in the month of April are working on next year's draft as well. They kind of dual roll it. Yeah, that draft board, that starts going up in, September, and that board's being worked the whole time, the whole year until we get through February. And then, in this process, we do a lot of draft management to move some guys around. But, yeah, it's a full year process with the scouts. We also add in the coaches' opinions, which is a really big part of the process as far as how they'll fit our scheme, whether offense or defense. Talking about projections from one position to another. Those guys are really good at that as far as being able to give us information there. And then you add in all of the, the medical and the character and the psychological testing we do. It kind of all rolls into one.
You said you're not going to force anything. Last year, obviously, Rashawn was someone that you targeted. But exercising patience, what does that look like inside the war room on draft night?
Poker face. Yeah. I mean, you do so much preparation that, once draft day comes, really nothing should surprise you. Now, something could surprise us if a player goes before us that we didn't anticipate, but as far as how would it affect us, it shouldn't, because we should have already talked out, not that specific player, but, where our numbers will be coming down to our picks. So, the last, 2-3 weeks, a lot of it's just draft preparation of what could happen and how you would attack it. So if you've gone through those scenarios, it's just like a game day. You practice and prepare well enough. You shouldn't have any pressure on game day. Just go out and execute it.
When you're creating the draft board and ranking players, how much do you incorporate positional value in terms of how the organization views certain positions? Like an edge rusher, for example, probably a lot more important than a linebacker. How do you guys incorporate that into the board? Yeah, that's usually on the back end of it. We'll get the board up from the scouts, kind of more, I wouldn't say vanilla, but without any positional value. Like our roster's completely empty. We have no players, and let's just put the board up. As we get towards the back end of it, then I kind of start, moving some guys around based on some of those factors. And then I always explain to the guys why I've, moved some guys around. So, yeah, that's kind of part two of the draft board.
Tom, this is the F them picks era we're living in now.
The what picks?
The F them picks.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
I
thought you said FM. Yeah, me too.
F them picks.
It took me a second.
Given that, and given what the Rams just did, have you moved at all in how you value draft picks or no?
I haven't changed, no. I think when people forget about the Rams, I mean, everyone focuses on those first-round picks. I mean, they've drafted and developed players really well, middle and late. So it kind of gets glossed over. I guess it's not as sexy, but they've done a great job with that, both Les and Sean. No, I don't think so. I mean, you can go back to draft 20, 30 years. I mean, teams have been trading first-round picks for players for a long time. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But if there was only one way to build a Super Bowl team, we would all take the exact same path. Obviously, the Rams did their path, and it worked great, worked awesome, when they won the Super Bowl. So, but I don't think, hasn't really changed the value of that first-round pick, at least for me. Yeah, I think they're not the first team to do it. They just did it really, really well.
Is that model sustainable, though? Like, relying on hitting on, fourth-round picks, fifth-round picks, sixth-round picks consistently? Because you always say that it's such a crapshoot.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I guess we'll find out over time. how things work. But like I said, there's just so many different ways to build a team that they're doing it the right way right now.
On defense, you guys have made a lot of changes in free agency. Do you feel like there's enough movement there to kind of get better from last year? I know you're pretty disappointed with the results a year ago, but do you feel like adding Khalil Mack and J.C. Jackson, or is there something missing that you feel like you want to address?
Yeah, I would hope so. I would hope so. All those guys we added, plus the players that we have with another year in this system, I'm hoping we take a big jump on that side of the ball this year.
With the running back group, obviously Austin, Josh, and Larry.
Right.
I know you said at the combine that this is a position that we have to address. So, how are you approaching running back heading into this draft, and also factoring the positional value stuff we were talking about earlier?
Yeah, I mean, it's two-pronged. We have some running backs here that kind of need to take that next step, as part of player development and coaching, and then see where the draft takes us, see where after the draft takes us. Just trying to attack it different ways. So, I know running backs have value in this league. I mean, you need them. You need good ones. You need guys that can do a lot of different things. It's a difficult position to play. But just the way college football is, I mean, there's just a lot of running backs come out every year. And as we're seeing, a lot of receivers are coming out every year. So, they still have value to us. But, just a matter of, where we're going to place them. And, we only get so many picks. And just try and attack things through different avenues. But, without forgetting the players we have here and, some development and improvement that can be made.
This is your 10th draft here. How do you feel like you guys have done in your 9 previous years?
Yeah, I don't really grade drafts, so I'll leave that up to you.
In terms of, I know you said the draft is hit and miss and not an exact science, but you've got only one member from that 2018 draft class still on the roster. When you look at guys going into their 5th year and trying to build a team and keeping your own picks, with a 5th year and having only one guy on there, is that lower than what we've seen throughout the league, or would you?
Well, if you take that 1 year, I would think it would be. Yeah, I think you got to hopefully look at it a little bit more broad based than that. But you're right. I mean, you're right. So, it just seems like the players we hit on, we don't really think about. The players we miss on, I'm talking about us. The players we miss on, we just try and figure out, okay, where did we miss? It's a pretty big process we go through of what went wrong. Sometimes it was something we maybe didn't see. Sometimes it was something uncontrollable. But in the end, it's an inexact science. If we try and make the best decision we can with the information we have, we try and make it probability based, just trying to increase our odds on hitting on the player. Doesn't mean we're going to hit on every player. We understand that. We'd like to hit on more than that draft class, certainly. But it's just the way that it is. It's not easy drafting players, but we've been good some years, and some years it's just hard to tell. It really is. But I like our process. I like the people that are involved with it. We keep everybody. It's a lot of information on a lot of players from a lot of people in this building, not just the scouts. I mean, you're talking about before, the medical with the doctors and the psychological testing and the security background checks and all the sources we talk to across colleges, and you do the best you can with that.
Can you do that on Zoom a lot more often now, the medicals and security, and maybe talk to a strength coach or an assistant a lot more? I know the area scouts do a good job of that.
Yeah, it's just like picking up the phone. I mean, sometimes you wouldn't need a Zoom, but yeah, certainly. That's all part of the process.
You guys obviously invested in the defensive line and free agency interior of the defensive line. Where do you feel like that group is at? Obviously, adding Austin, Sebastian, you got Jerry, Christian Covington resigned. Just where do you feel like that group is at? It's
good. Yeah, it's good. Got some guys in there, some big bodies that play hard, that fit what we want to do, and excited about it.
Kenneth Murray said on social media he had ankle surgery. What kind of timetable is he on?
I don't know. I mean, I assume he'll probably miss most of OTAs. We'll kind of go from there.
And was it? Did he just have something cleaned up, or can you give us any insight on what he actually had done?
He had ankle surgery. Yeah, I mean, it's something you prefer to not have surgery. That's always your first. You can. I think in his case, it just got the point that it just seemed like the best course of action was to go in and have surgery, and he's handled it really well.
I mean, would you anticipate training camp he should be good to go at the start?
I don't really know yet right now.
non-draft question. Have you
Yeah.
guys made a decision on Jerry Tillery's fifth-year option?
No updates there. You know, Jerry had a really nice role for us last year. Expect even bigger role this year, but we'll figure the contract stuff out after the draft.
Special teams wise, you signed J.K. Scott at punter, but is there a possibility you would bring somebody in for competition, or do you feel like you can stand pat there?
Yeah, I mean, I've told J.K. we'll probably have 2 punters in camp, but we're excited about it. I mean, once you guys see him, he's a really big, athletic punter. Gets the ball off quickly, really good leg. I know he wasn't with the team this past year until the very end, but he kicked well in Green Bay. Ryan Ficken was a real advocate for him. So I think you guys will be pleasantly surprised when you see him punt. He's got some real NFL talent. But we'll probably have another punter in as well and kind of see where it goes.
Many second-round pick, in the back end, a lot of picks are 6th and the 7th. Do you focus more on special teams and do you play that role?
I don't know if we would focus more on it. In my career, I can't remember ever having this many picks in the 6th and 7th round, so I have no idea how it's going to roll, really. Because you get down towards that 7th round, there's the way we do our board, there's not a lot of players left down there, so we'll kind of see how it shakes out. But it's going to be kind of fun, I guess, to have that many picks in the 7th, but we'll see. But yeah, it wouldn't be like a straight focus on just, on special teams, but we'll kind of see where it goes.
In terms of depth at edge rusher, Chris Rumpf, in line to be that third guy this year. Do you feel like he's ready for that role? Do you feel like you need more depth in that group?
No, I think so. We'll see once we get to training camp, but he would fit that category of a drafted player from last year and get a whole off-season program, and he's very coachable. So take that jump. Signed a linebacker, edge player from the CFL. Who's a good player up there. We'll see how he does, and we'll see. No, we have one more.
It's one non-draft related,
Yeah.
so I probably know my answer, but Derwin James, any update on the contract extension on him?
Yeah, that's the same answer as Jerry.
And might as well.
Yeah.
Pop in. Justin's going to be due for a big contract here coming up soon. I mean, were you like the many who were surprised with the Deshaun Watson deal and how that could influence future quarterback contracts?
I guess it could, but I'm kind of draft focused right now. We'll worry about that one down the road. But yeah, legitimate questions, certainly.
Just also too, because you said your scouts are already focusing on 2023. Mark Dominic on his conference call brought up a good point last week that the last 2 weeks are about next year's draft and maybe how it can influence this year's draft, maybe teams that are needy in some areas and positions that might be weak next year or strong next year. How much does that go into maybe evaluations when talking trades with teams or maybe looking at your own roster?
It sounds really good. I just don't think it's realistic, so I don't really subscribe to that theory. There's been too many players that we thought would be real guys the following year, and they don't turn out to be that. So I think it's just way too early to try and dictate where next year's draft is, even position-wise. So I just wouldn't subscribe to that, but it always sounds pretty good, and maybe people can do that. I'm not good enough to be able to project out that far. So, yeah, I'm not smart enough to do that.
What's this time like for you? Is it like are you sleeping much? Is it every day just a big board? How do you describe this?
Most of our work is done. So now it's just really just thinking through different scenarios. So yeah, I got a lot of things that go through my head, the 2 weeks leading up to the draft, but our scouts, our coaches, they do a great job with preparation. We're really organized. Again, it doesn't mean we're going to get every pick right, but we're really organized with the information. And that really kind of makes you sleep relatively well at night. Because, again, a lot of the draft, I can't control what's going to happen. I don't know exactly who will go in front of us. I don't know if we trade back exactly who will go, who we would miss on. So you just make educated decisions. Try not to overthink it. At least that's been my philosophy on that. Joe's trying to make me really think hard about next year's draft already, 2023. I don't have enough brain power for that. So, yeah, just try not to overthink it. I mean, we're trying to evaluate football players, we realize it's just not an exact science. Like we can spend hours trying to rank players, but there's no like official ranking of players. There just isn't. That's why when I hear like this player was a reach or this player was a great value, it doesn't make sense to me. That's just your opinion of where you thought that player should be drafted, and he was either drafted lower or higher. You know, I don't know. That doesn't make sense. So if you go back and look at drafts, pick any draft, and look how they were drafted, and then look how their pro careers were, it certainly didn't go from one to whatever. It just doesn't. So we put a lot of work into this. We kind of get players in groups in different areas. Yeah, we'll talk about ranking them, but I don't get too concerned about an exact ranking because who knows, really, who really knows? Now, we do add in a lot of medical and character stuff to kind of affect those rankings. But as far as talent and evaluating the player, it's difficult to have a true ranking. So we get things up there, we get prepared, watch the draft kind of unfold, and let it ride from there.
You guys are creatures of habit, especially during the draft. How strange is it going to be doing the 2 war room thing, one Thursday and then Friday, Saturday?
Yeah, if we hadn't had the pandemic draft, it would have been really, really strange. Like I would have been probably maybe fighting back a little bit on it. But again, I was worried about the pandemic draft doing it from home. Like I didn't think that was going to work, and it worked awesome, worked great. So if I can draft from my dining room table, I can draft from anywhere. So, the stadium, we have a huge locker room, plenty of space. It won't be an issue at all. But again, like if we didn't have the pandemic draft, I mean, I'd probably be worried about it, which isn't a good thing to have, going in and trying to make decisions. That worked just fine. This will work just fine. It'd be kind of fun, just like a field trip. Go down to the stadium, make our pick, and then come back home for it. Yeah, something different to do. I think it's be fun. The draft's fun. It's supposed to be fun. I know it's our job, but it's for the fans, for everybody involved. It's something fun to do, and it'll work just fine at SoFi.
So the draft board to make sure nobody screws it up on between what you have there and.
I have a really good plan for that right now. So, it hasn't yet. I got probably something I may have to work on this week.
You got a surf rack if you need one.
Sure. Hey, Snoop's a coach, so we may have to lean on him a little bit, see who he likes in the first round, see if he did his homework or not. All right, thanks.